New York City is a global city. It is the headquarters of capitalism. Not only American capitalism, but global capitalism. Here we have the Wall Street. We have the United Nations. You find here the richest individuals and families, and many American families that cannot work, cannot function without basic, essential worker in their home, and that is the domestic worker. Domestic work is the work that makes all work possible.
Ako po si Sherile Pahagas, 36 years old, from Isabela, Philippines. Nung kabataan ko, na-realize ko nga na mahirap kami. Dahil nakita mismo ng mata ko na may time na nangungutang nga kami ng bigas, ganyan, o pera. So, na-promise ko nga sa sarili ko na pangarap ko sa buhay na maiangat ko yung pamilya ko sa hirap. So, naisipan ko na mag-abroad. Wala akong ideya na pwede ka palang ma-human trafficking based on my experience.
If we want to understand the root causes of labor trafficking, then we have to go back to the root causes back home. Why do Filipinos migrate in the first place? The Philippines is very rich in natural resources, but it's mainly controlled, by few political dynasties or foreign-owned. We don't have our own basic industries. It's mainly foreign investors and multinational companies and transnational companies, that control major industries. You have this ruling elite, of foreign domination, corrupt politicians and big landlords controlling the entire country. The Philippines was not developed. Instead, we became a source of natural resources for the capitalist countries. Labor trafficking didn't exist in a vacuum. There were factors that pushed us to leave our country, and that is massive poverty and unemployment.
Nag-try lang ako mag-apply sa ibang bansa through Great Au Pair. Namit ko tong sila Pete at Mareike Koehler. Sabi niya, we are diplomats. German diplomats. Sabi niya, okay, gusto daw nila akong i-hire. Nag-offer sila ng $9.86 an hour for 8 hours a day. So, kapag nag-overtime, 1.5. So, syempre, excited ako. Laking pera nga yan, di ba? Nung nakalapag na kami dito, nagulat ako. Ang laki. 6 bedroom, 6 bathroom. Plus yung basement. Ang lawak na pwede kang maglaro ng soccer game. Gumigising ako ng alas 6. And then, doon ako nag-start. Naging daily routine ko, natatapos ako ng 10 or 11 na ng gabi. So, nagtatrabaho ako ng total of 102 hours a week. With the same salary, $345. So, na-realize ko na yung kontrata namin, tsaka yung ginagawa ko, hindi na siya mag-match. So, inattempt ko na talaga na kausapin sila ng maayos. Sabi ko, sir, I think there's something wrong. It's say in the contract that you're supposed to pay me 1.5 hours when my time rates 40 hours. So, sabi niya, ang reply ko sa akin, Sherile, we cannot afford more than your salary. Wala naman akong magawa. Live-in ako. So, ayun, sunod-sunuran na lang. Biniis ko.
So the Human Trafficking Legal Center has handled dozens of forced labor cases, and many of the forced labor cases that we handle are cases involving domestic workers trafficked by diplomats or international organization employees to the United States for domestic servitude. I think the power imbalance is even more extreme in diplomat cases than it is in regular cases of forced labor. And that power imbalance makes it even harder for the domestic workers to escape.
So, one time, nag-snow. First snow. First snow ko. Pero malakas. Tapos mataas. Ibig sabihin, snowstorm. Hindi ko in-expect na nasasabihin ako na magpala ako ng snow sa driveway. Imagine. Ang late-late kong tao, ako magpapala. Tapos, napapadalas na yan. Napapadalas na akong gumagawa talaga. Tapos, nagtataka ako, bakit yung mga kapitbahay merong nagpupunta na mga sasakyan para mag-blow ng snow? Alam mo, naramdaman, ako pa ang nahihiya. Pag nakikita nila ako na nagpapala ng snow. May time na nag-away kami ng boss dahil sabi. Nagreklamo na ako kasi nag-work ako hanggang Saturday. So habang nagbabakim ako sa taas, pinuntahan ako ni Pete. Tapos talagang hinablot lang niya yung plug ng vacuum. So sabi niya, wala kang respeto. Baba ka doon, mag-uusap tayo. Sabi niya. Tapos yun, nagalit yung babae, talagang kulang-kula. Tapos ginanyan ko yung wala kang respeto sa akin. Do you wanna go home? We can buy your ticket. Yun yung reaction niya. Hindi ko.
When you look at the signs of trafficking, you have to look at it in its totality, right? In the heart, of all the signs or, symptoms of labor trafficking is the need for power and control. The trafficker is asserting, power and control over the trafficked worker.
Ang naramdaman ko talaga nung takot ako. Nanginginig ako. Siyempre, pag pinauwi ako, mawawala na ako ng visa, babalik na naman ako sa dati. Kung isipin ko mag-apply ulit sa abroad, doble gastos na naman. Back to zero. Hindi pa ako nakaka-recover sa mga gastusin ko, yung mga loan ko nun sa bangko. So, nung trineten nila ako, nai-deport nila ako, nag-sorry na lang ako sa kanila, nagpakumbaba. Para lang ma-save yung visa ko.
Diplomats and the international organization employees who are bringing workers over are bringing them on visas, but that very visa that gives them the basis to be here in the United States, that very visa ties them to their employer. It's like handcuffs.
There's a breaking point for the trafficked worker where they would decide either to escape, their situation, or their trafficker would let them go. Either way, by that time, they would be undocumented already.
Dahil nga, wala namang nagbabago dun sa sahod, tsaka dun sa oras ng trabaho ko. Hindi naman nila tinutupad yung kontrata. So, pinausap ko sila na hindi na ako magre-report. Pero, inisip ko na lang mag-stay dito. Kasi alam mo, marami akong sinusuportahan sa Pilipinas. Kasi kailangan ko ng trabaho. Naging undocumented ako. Pagkalis ko kina Koehler dahil nakatali ang immigration status ko sa kanila.
Labor trafficking survivors experience tremendous challenges with their immigration status when they run away. Because often, if they're here on an A3 visa or a G5 visa or a B1, B2 visa, when they run away, they lose their visa status. So they go from being documented to undocumented just by walking through a doorway and walking out into the street. And so it's so important that organizations like Damayan are available to connect people immediately with services and pro bono lawyers and resources so that they will not be homeless and so they will not suffer because of their lost immigration status.
One time, nung nagtrabaho ko sa Chelsea, nasa park ako, nag-aalaga ako ng bata noon. So meron nag-feel na mga Filipino na nagko-convince na sumali sa organization na Damayan. So, naramdaman ko nung nag-member ako ng Damayan. Nabuhay na ako ng loob. So, yun meron palang tinatawag na human trafficking. At yun nga yung naging case ko.
After the survivor breaks free from the trafficker, our goal for her is to help her achieve justice and dignity. And how do we do that? First, we encourage her to fight for a humanitarian trafficking visa. Second, we encourage her to fight for her unpaid wages.
Marami kang matututunan sa Damayan. Marami silang seminars na ina-attendan ko na para magkaroon ka lang ng mga ideya or para ma-educate ka kung ano yung rights mo. Doon, marami akong natutunan na naisip ko, ay, mayroon pala akong case. Malakas pala yung kaso ko. Napag-desisyonan ko na ilalaban ko yung kaso ko. So, nung nanalo ako ng visa, nag-email yung lawyer ko. Sabi, Sherile, congratulations. Your visa was approved and your children was also approved. Talagang na-overwhelm ako. Masayang-masaya talaga ako dahil at least merong pag-asa sa akin, sa pamilya ko. Nung nag-file kami ng stolen wage case, which is may utang ang yung si Koehler at Mareike Koehler na umaabot ng $212,000 US. Walang nangyari. Masakit yung pakiramdam. Kasi wala man lang kami nakuha. Pinaghirapan ko yun. Talagang masama yung loob ko. Kasi kung tutusin, nagiging okay na sana yung buhay ko eh. Dahil nga dyan sa may diplomatic immunity, wala kaming magagawa. Yun ang batas dito. Napaka-unfair ng justice dito.
For decades, diplomats have used their immunity to traffic domestic workers and guarantee themselves impunity. And so in capitals around the globe, not just here in the United States, we see cases of diplomats and international organization employees exploiting domestic workers, holding them in their homes in forced labor, and then literally getting away with it.
One of Damayan's centerpiece campaign is Baklas, or Break Free from Labor Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery. So this is where we really train labor trafficking survivors to become social justice leaders.
Damayan is a workers' organization. We're not a service organization. We're a membership-based and led organization. We have many services, but on top of that, we want them to realize that Damayan is one organization that not only gives services, but gives them the knowledge, the education, and the training for them to help themselves and help our community. We aspire Damayan to be recognized and embraced by the community as their own community.
So, nag-organize ang Damayan ng rally para sa aming stolen wage. So, nagrally kami sa German mission at saka sa UN. So, pakiramdam ko talaga nung ang tapang-tapang ko. Kahit kumuulan talaga, sige lang. Lumabas yung galit. Tsaka talagang nagre-rebelde yung pakiramdam ko that time. Hustisya na hindi mo makuha.
Prosecuting diplomats is not impossible. All it requires is a waiver of immunity, but what we find is that governments are very loath to demand a waiver of immunity from a diplomat's sending state. It's enormously important for countries to hold their own diplomats accountable, but unfortunately what we see is that rarely happens.